Greetings, YouTube world. It's Wiz-Kid, and I haven't made a video literally since probably I want to say like August of 2022 or something like that. And the reason is because I guess I just lost interest. I don't know. I did make a couple videos outlining my analysis and interpretations for Lana Del Rey and Steve-O, which I don't know if anyone's seen those yet, but you can watch them if you want to. But not as much here for the self-promo, but we're more going to be discussing Uranus and Gemini, and it's really interesting because I've been doing a lot of research for the last few months regarding this transit. Well, especially today, I should say. But I did copy some notes that I did write a while ago in my phones onto paper. Here, as you can see, 3 whole pages. So first 2 pages are my analyses and then the last page is what I found on the Google interwebs of the history and things that have been invented while Uranus was in Gemini. And the reason especially that I'm making this video is because I just want to probably make people aware that there are probably going to be some really huge major changes. No, I'm not even going to say probably. Like, there are absolutely going to be huge changes we're going to be seeing in the world in at least the next few years. And the reason I say that is because we're going to be having Pluto in Aquarius for the first time since the Revolutionary War. We're going to be having Neptune in Aries for the first time since the Civil War. And we're going to be having Uranus in Gemini for the first time since World War II. Not to mention, Uranus was also in Gemini during the Civil War and the Revolutionary War too. Not to mention Saturn conjuncting Neptune into the first degree of Aries, along with Uranus entering Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, all 0 degrees. So they're going to be making a big triangle in the sky. All 3 of these collective bodies, including Saturn, to not forget about that. And you can start to see why I've kind of been obsessing over these transits. And not only that, but when you just look at the signs that these planets are going into, they're almost contradictory, or they're very fascinating, very perplexing. You know, just seeing the way that these planets are interacting with signs that are more about social movements and more about the way that we interact one-on-one and such things of that nature, instead of being in the rather grounded and more stable and home-like emotional vibe of Capricorn, Taurus, and Pisces. Pisces being the more emotional sign because it's a water sign. And of course, Capricorn and Taurus are more economic, or definitely more just reality-based signs. But I felt greatly compelled to talk about these, not just for the fact that they've had a huge impact in history, but for the fact that I'm just going to write the timestamp right there there we go. So the reason that I wanted to talk about these is not just for the fact they're going to be very historically significant, especially with the rise of AI and all the tensions we're having around with other countries, especially what's happening in Gaza, and especially with Israel versus Palestine, but also for the fact, just for the sake of just nature and just all of the crazy natural disasters that have happened, and all of the higher ups being exposed, and just a lot of shit going down, to put it quite frankly. And I felt really compelled to make this video today, especially because, well, not only is my natal Uranus being conjoined by the transiting sun today, but I had a really interesting experience as I was driving my brother to get food, to get dinner this evening. So what happened? First thing, I went in my car. Everything's fine. Everything's cool. I thought I saw a bolt of lightning or something out of the corner of my eye. I swear I saw it. It had to be some kind of heat lightning or something like that. And and then as we're driving, I see literally on my I see on my odometer it says that since my last oil change, I have driven 777 miles. And I've been seeing lots of signs of synchronicities and stuff like that, especially pertaining to this particular topic, which we're going to get a little more into in a bit. I mean, if you don't want to hear, then of course skip the timestamps. But yeah, and then as I was coming home, interestingly enough, um, I also saw someone saw Christmas decorations flashing on and off, which I don't know if that was part of like the whole gimmick or if that was or if that could have just been literally the lights malfunction or something like that. But I'm like, yep, yeah, Uranus and Gemini. It's a sign. It is a sign. Um, and then not to mention the fact that we got like foreign/exotic food, Aquarius. Um, I mean, considering Uranus is in Taurus, you could definitely technically argue foreign food, Taurus, representing the second house in astrology and the galactic sky that we inhabit of food and possessions and material things and such. But anyway, so I'm going to get into Uranus meaning in right about now with all that being said. Um, actually, here we go. So what is Uranus known for historically? Uranus is denoted with it can often be sometimes upsetting changes, represent spontaneity, rebellion, freedom. It can represent it represents upheaval. It represents shocking events, things that really catch us off guard, and things that tend to really things that tend to make us really question our freedom as people. It can even be to the extent where we question our reality. Um, and more than anything, I've noticed, especially in my own life, that it definitely can represent certain upsetting things. And what does Gemini represent as a sign? Timestamp. Beautiful. Gemini represents represents the intellect, the social mind, as I like to think of it, or it was more the analytical and reality-based mind, the way that functions. Gemini rules communication. It represents local travel. It represents commute. It represents the way that we exchange ideas with each other. Gemini can also be a creative sign. It's quick-witted. It's versatile. It's dexterous. It's scatterbrained. I know this myself because I'm a Gemini Sun and Venus, so I know all about it. But yeah, witty, I would say, is another thing to describe Gemini. Adaptable. It's a mutable sign. Kind of goes with the flow. So, so with these influences combined, we can see not just a planet that's known for eccentricity, which is Uranus, but now we're also having it in the sign of Gemini, which in itself is also, I don't want to say more inconsistent sign or rather unstable, but I want to say it's definitely more multifaceted. It's more like having your fingers in too many pies. Very much scatterbrained energy, which is now having a higher echelon type of thinking aspect to it. And not just that, but also an unconventional, out of the box twist to it. So, I mean, once I get into the inventions and the events, you're going to see exactly how astonishingly revolutionary this combination is. It's no fucking joke, guys. Um, so with that being said, I'm going to get into my predictions here. Um, all right, and that's 10-4. I'll make that like 10-50 for the predictions. So, um, la la la. Gemini also gets easily distracted, dude. Don't forget that. As you see right here, it's your boy Ash Wiz-Kid. You know what's up. So one of the first things I predicted, how predictable, right? How predictable is a prediction? Is lightning speed communication, which we technically already see with using our phones to text people and whatnot. We can send a message to someone who's literally like 2,000 miles away and it'll just get there in an instant. That's just the times we're living in. And I definitely think like with Uranus and Gemini, it could be accelerated to like absolutely just imperceivably fast speeds. We even see the way that our phones connect to certain devices and whatnot. And it only takes like a few seconds. But with Uranus and Gemini, it could be like literally split like nanoseconds, or it'll just be effortless once Uranus goes into Gemini, or there will be inventions, or they're probably already in the making as we speak. So one of my other thousands of predictions here too is technology with a dual purpose or intention. If you think of Gemini as this dualistic personality, you can think of it as you can think of it as a sign that has two personalities. And we can see all of the technology that's being released today, especially considering Boston Dynamics, how they're just creating robots that can robot dogs that can jump 5 feet in the air, and even robots that can do backflips. I wouldn't be surprised if we see technology which is also ruled by not even just government entities, but also certain third parties or elites that is intended to. It may seem like on the surface that that it's all for the sake of, just future innovation, but it could have a effect where it could read too much into the mind, or rather this technology can be used for shady purposes that may not be within our own understanding or beyond our own understanding comprehension. Innovations in commute and local traveling, such as hoverboards, flying cars, UFOs, and rocket skates. Yeah, I think very well we could very much see the implementation. I mean, we're already seeing it with people who actually create jetpacks. We've been seeing that, I think, for at least the last 5 or 10 years now, with maybe a few prototypes probably built way back then. One of the more predictable predictions that I have, along with Pluto and Aquarius, also working in tandem with Uranus and Gemini too. These two are having an interesting feedback, as well as Neptune and Aries, if you look deeper back to the history of these signs. But one of the predictable things would be seeing alien technology, right? It's been going around like every video you see, right? But especially with Uranus and Gemini, this is otherworldly and unconventional technology, probably that's going to be straight in our hands, right, for our use. We already have cell phones that can that can contact someone across the world, but have you ever thought about across space, time, things like that? I think in the next few years we could very much see, very possibly, that there could be some communication with extraterrestrial life. It seems very generic and corny, I know, but I mean, honestly, I mean, with all of these intense aspects and all of this sort of focus on spirituality and overcoming of like the typical earthly social self, if you look deeper into these transits and the way they're working, it's not all that far off, I don't think. Technology operated with the mind. Neuralink, of course, not to be confused with Neuralink. It could be technology that's just more intended either to read into the mind, or technology that is used in order to like play mind games with people, perhaps. I kind of wrote that a few different times in this in one way or another. But I'm just kind of considering all of the options that are here um, in my predictions. Holographic technology. So we could very much see the like more presence of like instead of like having just like people and like mascots and stuff like that, you could see more people presenting actual like simulated like people, or like Sims for short, of like people actually advertising at businesses instead of having to wear a big puffy suit and like having to sweat your ass off and everything like that whenever you go into a store. And, that could be good and it can be bad. Bad kind of maybe like on the financial end of things, but overall good for just the convenience factor and not having needing anyone to actually like, suffer in those big heavy outfits or whatever to advertise for a company. Um Moving on with the predictions. New ways of experience gaming. Instead of just the virtual reality headsets, I mean, we could very well be seeing um we do have there are deprivation tanks, but I think we could very much see like a more immersive and more fulfilling of the senses in terms of gaming, and not even just like what I said from like the visual perspective with like, there was the Virtual Boy, and there was I forget if it was the PS5 Virtual or whatever it was called, one of those systems. It was like some kind of set of like virtual reality goggles, VR, something similar to that. Um, so we could definitely see more immersive experiences with gaming, and may even be hard to decipher reality, especially with Neptune and Saturn ingressing into Aries. It'll definitely be harder to pinpoint where the self begins and where the sort of fun ends. It's definitely a strange Alice going down the rabbit hole kind of effect. And Pluto and Aquarius also just further enhancing that too. Um, we could see um, simulated, more interactive forms of entertainment. So that kind of goes along with the gaming, but it could also be like actually experiencing like being a character like on a show. Um, I would definitely wouldn't be surprised, even just in the collective greater good of things, we're going to see more integration of fantasy versus reality. I think that could definitely be the beginning of kind of being. It's kind of hard to tell where the innovation of our technology will end and where reality will begin, and so on and so forth. So just adding on to that, teleportation, which is obviously a very futuristic influence. I think that sort of caught me by surprise. Imagine being able to teleport. imagine just being able to show up to work and you don't have to drive, you don't have to like you don't have to like phone an Uber or anything, like it'll cost probably like a certain fee just to teleport somewhere, wherever it might be, and you can just be there. I mean, I think that would be extremely convenient, especially for someone like me who kind of teeter totters between like not wanting to get out of the house and like all at the same time while wanting to be active. For the days I'm feeling particularly lazy, it can be very convenient, and we could see the integration of that within homes, maybe, possibly. More interactive social groups and movements, major change in that arena. So yes, so we could see both sort of a massive increase in being able to find people who are more like-minded to us, who have our same ideas, but also more separation of people. Because the thing about Pluto and Uranus is Pluto also represents destruction, and Uranus represents abruptness and disruptions. Um, and we could see the same thing happening with technology too. Um, Not to get too off topic, but I definitely think there will be kind of a better way to tell who we'll get along with, and there will be probably more tribalistic mentality when interacting with the world and people and things around us. I don't know if the RFID microchip would be perhaps responsible for that. I mean, that China already has integrated that kind of technology, and that could definitely be more reading into our minds, and being able to kind of pull our secrets out of our asses per se. It's definitely a more dramatic and less fun interpretation. I just saw 222222 on my timer too, so might want to take special note of that one. But hopefully it will not reach that far. But I mean, if we can use such things in a way that isn't going to affect people's privacy, um, we could definitely find more like-minded people and people who really fit our unique needs, instead of it having to be instead of us having to explain ourselves and adjusting to ourselves. We know who's good for us and we know who's bad for us. But the problem is, like, we might be separated from the good or certain bad people, and we might not be able to tell or have certain opportunities because we have one idea, we believe in one thing. So it's like they'll instantly know that thing you believe in or that thing you think, and they'll all just be like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't want to deal with you," or "No, I can't give you this opportunity because I saw what you did. I can literally see it like I can see it like right like on your tag or some shit like that, or on your real ID or something like that." That is definitely a more dark interpretation of it, which is almost kind of linked to what I said. No pun intended. The Neuralink that Elon Musk is thinking about releasing. So some more stuff I put. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna make a part two, maybe a part three. I might do sign and house interpretation. I'm not sure about that, but I think this video is definitely a lot longer than what I was expecting it to be. So I might have to make a part two of this, but I'll continue, and I guess I'll just see where it goes. So to continue with my predictions, I also wrote down constant and sweeping technological advancements, in which I wrote down too, Pluto is also only intensifying this, especially for the first several years, I would say. Especially for the first few years, definitely. I mean, if you think of Aquarius as a sign that constantly wanting to reinvent itself, and is definitely linked with the collective mind, and it can be very much linked with. Um, it's a very logical sign. It's definitely more detached and a bit more of an aloof sign. Um, and if you think of Pluto as destruction, death, rebirth, renewal, revolution, then Uranus and Gemini, like what I said, Uranus also being revolutionary, but not quite in the same way as Pluto. Pluto's more like digging all of the crap, all of the dirt out and transforming it. Uranus is like more of like an upsetting situation that makes you have an epiphany. Pluto's a more like very deep revelation of the self. Think of it, definitely more deeper spiritual awakening. And Uranus almost represents like a sudden thing happening, and then like you deal with the repercussions, and like boom. So there's a difference in sort of the pace that I think Uranus and Pluto operate on. And for a little more clarity too, Neptune, I feel like, is more of a dissolving of the self. It's a dissolving of the boundaries. It represents vagueness, fogginess. So Neptune is more of a planet inclined to dream, which, it being an Aries, can be a bit tricky, especially because Aries is like a confidence sign. It wants to know itself. It wants to be able to speak up for itself. And the fact that Neptune is in Aries, and also Saturn's going in there, which is a debilitated placement for Aries, it definitely can represent a collective like rethinking of the self and where we all stand with ourselves in society, as all of these huge sweeping technological changes are just taking us by storm. It's just happening so constantly, it's so fast because of all this intense Uranus and Pluto energy, that the definitive self of all of us doesn't know where it stands. But it can also bring us so much closer to our actual hopes and dreams too, which I feel like that's so fascinating about this transit. And I feel so compelled to actually talk about that. But we'll get into I actually wrote notes too on what these big three transits are going to bring to the world as well. I'm definitely gonna have to make a part 2 on this because I have way too many notes. I'm just gonna try to get through these. I'm just gonna probably gonna do this rest of this page's predictions, and then I'll get into the inventions and events that are linked with this. So, newfound abilities and methods of communicating with multiple people at once. Which, I mean, if you pick and choose between certain things that Uranus and Gemini stand for as well, and then also add Pluto and Aquarius into the occasion, and then maybe the eventual Neptune and Saturn conjunct in Aries, but also just for the present time, for the present moment, once Jupiter goes into Gemini, which will be on, I think, May 26th of this year of 2024. I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that it's 2024. But with that being said, we can expect new kinds and variations of social media. And like I said before, more interactive types of socializing. Perhaps there'll be so many social medias that we almost can't choose. Or what happens is the collective mind will have so many scattered thoughts and beliefs and opinions that we almost don't know where to fill. And it's like we're trying to find this like perfect way to be, or this certain like standard that we feel like we have to live up to as a collective. May even see some more like upsets regarding social media, more like internet interruptions in relation to that. Um, but so that was kind of also links in with newfound abilities and methods of communicating with multiple people at once. So one of my other predictions is airplanes and hovercrafts that are invented that could break preconceived laws and barriers of speed and functionality. Which we've already seen like supersonic jets being built. We've seen all kinds of crazy military crafts being invented, and not even just that, but crazy increase in UFO sightings, which is very odd. If you also think of Gemini as the trickster of the zodiac, you know, and you think of Uranus as like an unconventional technology bringing planet, it's almost no wonder we've been seeing a lot of these kind of strange spacecrafts in the sky more often since especially 2020, with that ingress of Jupiter and Saturn exactly conjuncting in Aquarius at the beginning degree, which I feel like that's a very big landmark of where we're going to be headed as a society. I would even say Aquarius also represents society in that respect too. Um, Another one of my predictions: multiple spontaneous scientific breakthroughs and discoveries. Um, which would be, if you look in the history, and we'll get to it in a bit, it is pretty unbelievable and miraculous that the things that were discovered during this ingress of Uranus in Gemini throughout history. It is mind blowing. Um, no pun intended. Uh, Gemini weight is coming in there. um, Sudden ideas on how to change and help the world, mostly the physically disabled and others with debilitating illnesses. And that's especially attributed with Aquarius, because I believe Aquarius is actually one of the signs associated with nursing and helping someone less privileged out. You can also see impulsive technology releases, which may not be fully ready for public use, fingering too many pies / glossing over critical details, which we already saw what happened with all of those Tesla cars recently. I think, what was it, Minnesota or Michigan or something like that, or somewhere in was it Nebraska or Ohio or something like that? There was like 150 Tesla cars that got so cold and so broken down they had to recall them, and that happened just before Pluto went into Aquarius. I'm telling you guys, like the signs and synchronicities with everything that's been happening, especially with Pluto going in Aquarius and all of the things I've been seeing, it's pretty fucking insane. I just saw 3333 on my time clock right there. Yeah, there's definitely big changes coming. And then one of the things I also want to add to that point too, that Gemini is very much a sign that's like I said, it can be scatterbrained. It can gloss over important details. So you could definitely be seeing a lot of like super fast and like really intense like innovation of technology, and then a lot of recalling, a lot of reworking, a lot of recalling, a lot of really fast, and then it's going to be kind of this weird back and forth of technological advancement. And you know, my biggest advice is just to really carefully make sure you check the details of whatever you're putting out. Make sure it won't explode. Make sure it's not going to shoot fucking rockets. You know, if it's like a robot or something, make sure it's like up to like standard. Make sure the shit is good. Don't just give in to the fucking pressure of the wave. Make sure it's good. And most of all, make sure that thing doesn't have RFID microchips or any fucked up shit like that. Hopefully. Another thing is enhanced socializing / integration of robots and AI, which are already kind of seeing that. We're definitely seeing that, actually. And then, as well as sudden disruptions in the way we travel, talk, exchange, and interact socially. Especially with Uranus being a disruptive energy in the house of, like, what do you want to say, commerce, transport, Gemini representing the third house, so local travel, getting from point A to point B can represent probably, like, I would say, vehicles, although that would be probably closer to the second house, Taurus, dealing with material things. We'll definitely be seeing a lot more interruptions in the way that we get from point A to point B and whatnot. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if we see that. And also just considering the way that travel was so, like, weird and sporadic, especially during World War II and the Civil War, and just seeing all of, like, the breakthroughs and the debates that were going on, like, even in past generations before us. It's very, very astounding, for sure. With that being said, timestamp for getting into inventions now. So those are half of my predictions for Uranus and Gemini. And I got a whole page, which I'm going to do another time, because I don't think I have the energy to go through all of this shit right now. But this topic is extremely passionate to me, and I hope that you guys will gain some benefit out of this. So, some of the inventions and events, which I'll have to shout out to jessicadavidson.co, because I did get a good amount of my notes from her. But I got a few notes from a few other websites, but the way she described it was so concise, so accurate, so simple, straight to the point for my small little Gemini brain and my fairly conflicted Mercury and Taurus with a straight T-square to my ascendant and my Uranus. But anyway, actually, no, I'll create a new timestamp, as a matter of fact. 3740. Perfect. So, for inventions. So, as far as inventions go, so in 1608, there was the invention of the telescope by Hans Lippershey, and then in 1609, the telescope that Hans built was actually enhanced and had 20 times more vision than Hans had, which was made by Galileo Galilei. And at the beginning of the 1600s, also, there was the first newspaper to be printed on a regular basis in 1609 in Germany. So not like the actual first official paper, but the first one, I think, that was to be used, like, for general purposes. The first sound recording in 1860, like the first official sound recording, the first underground railway in 1863, this was when Uranus was in Gemini during the Civil War, the first color photograph made by James Clerk Maxwell, the father of electrical engineering, the microwave oven, which was invented during World War II, the invention of the slinky, the introduction of aerosol cans, and just before the official ingress in 1941 was the invention of color television, but not for official public use, but just for, I think, just like general use. I think, like, in companies and stuff like that, or like the very few people who could probably afford it during that time. And another very interesting tidbit I want to add with the inventions of this time were, so the first actual computer made by Charles Babbage was the analytical engine, which He started it in 1833 when Uranus was in Aquarius, by the way, and he didn't finish it until 1871 when Uranus was in Gemini. It's really fascinating too because Gemini and Aquarius are trining air signs too. And me personally, I also have Jupiter in Aquarius as well. So I have 2 planets in Gemini and 2 planets in Aquarius. So I have like a sort of decent, I have a pretty good idea, especially with the Gemini energy. Um, for the Aquarius aspects, it is on my descendant. I'm a Leo rising, so Uranus is 3 degrees past my ascendant, or no, 3 degrees past my descendant. Um, and it's really fascinating to see the way that these two signs kind of interact and the way they're going to be kind of, I don't know if I want to say exposing or just revealing certain social dynamics which we've been living with for centuries, and the reevaluation, the re-questioning of such things, and just deep seated beliefs about what's right and what's wrong definitely coming up to the surface, and being exposed for what we are, and what is right and what is wrong. So with that being said, so 41, 40. So the events that were associated with Uranus and Gemini was actually the start of the scientific revolution of the 1600s. The discovery of Uranus, 1781, by William Herschel. The Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II, as we said. The Roswell incident in 1947 that happened in New Mexico, which if you've probably heard about it, apparently there was a UFO, unidentified flying object, that crashed into a desert, and apparently there were some alien life forms or something that came out of the crash, and it's left a stamp on history, which I think is very strange too, considering like people would try to disprove it, but then why was it noted in history? That's the thing. I mean, something must have happened. That's a debate for another time. But the space age during World War II, when I forget which countries it was, but I know United States was involved. There was Russia that invented the Sputnik in the late 60s. That was another thing. But it was between the United States and I think a few other nations that were basically just having wars over like who could travel to space like first and farthest. And interestingly enough, in 1944 they launched the first monkey into space. A monkey sacrificed his life to make it to I don't know if it was the end of space or which spaceship it was. Was it the V2? I think, I forget. And then interestingly enough, this is going way back. So another thing that happened too was Socrates dying in 399 BC and BCE, when Uranus was in Gemini, and this was actually after there was some kind of war that happened for a few years, and they finally regained democratic rule. I think in Greece or something like that. And basically Socrates died essentially for making students think, just to think about the world they live in, and like who they're listening to and whatnot. And I don't know if he got executed or he was in exile for that, but yeah, he died pretty much for encouraging students to use their noggins. And now it's 44 on the time clock. I know I keep saying that like every 11 minutes, but you can't make this shit up, guys. Yeah, so that's all I have so far for Uranus and Gemini. I'll be making a part 2 with the rest of my predictions. Um, I really hope that, writing that down for the events, I really hope that you liked this video, and I hope I wasn't too socially awkward, as Uranus and Gemini probably would be. And I'm extremely excited too, because it's really insane. Because, I mean, right now Pluto's trining my sun, and then Neptune and Saturn will be sextiling my sun, and then Uranus will be conjuncting my sun. So I feel like it might be a really excellent time to start some kind of big major project or something like that, or to really kind of like take my power back as a person or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, not even just for me, but for like the world in general. You know, I definitely feel like there's more of a collective influence regarding these transits. And I feel like it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of. We're going to be seeing personal empowerment, which will trigger outer empowerment. And there'll be definitely more of a collective wave of feedback, and really sensing our energies and being able to stand up against toxic systems which no longer hold any good place for our spiritual evolution or our personal evolution as people. I'm talking Darwin either, not talking Darwin. That's a whole other ball of wax. But just the natural progression of where we're going in this very strange time we're living in, with all these natural disasters and economic collapse and all these insane things that are going on in the world. And all these people, all these bad, popular people being exposed as just like fucked up people. It's really crazy to see. And with all of that being said, feel free to check in next time. I hope this video enlightened you, pun intended, at least to a decent amount on what you could expect with Uranus and Gemini. I'll be making a part 2 at some point, so stay tuned for that. Until then, peace, y'all. Wiz-Kid signing out.